Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Zcrew podcast. And today, it is Tuesday, July 29th, 2025, guys. Now, we are officially 2 days away from our first look at NFL action. Now, of course, it is the Hall of Fame game, so won't see very many of the superstars playing, but still, guys, very excited to watch some NFL football, so be very excited for that in a couple of days. But today, we will continue our deep dive into all 32 teams in order to count down to kick off 2025. So, without further ado, let's get today's episode started with the Buffalo Bills, guys. Now, of course, we all know last season the Buffalo Bills, led by their MVP quarterback Josh Allen, lost a very tight game, a very tough game to the AFC Championship game to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, once again, we saw the Bills this close. The Bills were so close, and you could argue they outplayed Mahomes. Josh Allen definitely outplayed Mahomes, and the Bills definitely outplayed the Chiefs in that game. But once again, we just saw the Chiefs step up when it mattered most and were able to get the job done and ultimately beat the Bills. Very tough loss for the Bills, who, again, I hate to say it, but just, again, prove the narrative now. Until somebody beats Mahomes besides Joe Burrow, the narrative is going to be, unfortunately, as annoying as it is Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson can't beat Mahomes when it counts. And that is really annoying for Bills and Ravens. Trust me, I know as a Ravens fan, it's very frustrating. But God believe that eventually we will take down Mahomes. So, without further ado, let's get a deep dive into this season, guys, for the Buffalo Bills. So, again, as I mentioned before, last season we saw Josh Allen win his first career MVP. Obviously had an amazing season, rightfully so. Also, running back James Cook had a career season last year. He had over 1,000 yards and 16 touchdowns. Yes, 16 touchdowns is a lot of touchdowns for one running back, I think. So clearly, with Stephon Diggs being out the door in Houston last season, they kind of needed a little bit of a shift in their offense, where they really, with offensive coordinator Joe Brady, leaned heavily on James Cook in the running game because he is an amazing running back. Again, to start this season, the storyline of this season was James Cook was unhappy with his current contract, especially with the way he played last year. He played like a top 5 running back last year. He absolutely did. So he deserves his money, and it seems as if in this training camp, as the team reported last week, James Cook was at camp, so he's not holding out, but still, obviously a franchise player does seem a little upset because he feels he deserves his money, and I think he does too, especially after having a career season last year, guys. Now, of course, Josh Allen, one of the main reasons why the Bills were able to win so many games. They finished the year 13-4 and win their 5th straight AFC East title was because the Bills and Josh Allen cut down the turnovers, which was a big issue in the past for Josh Allen, where he kind of played reckless. People would say he wasn't the best decision maker, but he kind of proved them wrong by having an absolutely amazing season, cut down the turnovers with less, you could argue with less weapons on offense too, because again, they did lose Stephon Diggs. So pretty impressive what Josh Allen was able to do last year. But, of course, guys, this season, the main storyline at first was James Cook. Will he enter camp? I don't know, there was talk that James Cook might potentially hold out and not show up to training camp, but as it seems as if today he's been practicing. I've seen that he's been, looking good in training camp, so it seems like he will practice. Of course, he's still probably unhappy with ownership, probably still wants a contract, rightfully so, but of course, he's still going to prove it, and, they're going to probably say, hey, if you play like that again this year, got no choice but to pay you. But, of course, the Bills, they also added some big additions to their defense. Now, they did sign some guys on the older side. They signed veteran edge rusher Joey Bosa as a free agent. Pretty good signing for the Bills. Of course, the main issue with him is injury concern. If he can stay healthy, this is a great addition for the Bills, especially I'm looking at like in January in the playoffs. I think Joey Bosa could be a huge secret weapon for the Bills, potentially in the playoffs, of course. They also signed veteran defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi, again, to bolster up that really strong defense. Again, I think the Bills have a very strong defense. You could argue that their secondary is a little bit sus last year, especially with they did lose 2 key guys like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. They were kind of looking at replacing those guys, so maybe you still have a bit of a question mark there. But no, I wouldn't be worried about it, especially with the way their defense has played in years past. Their defense played amazing last year, led by guys like Matt Milano, absolutely amazing guys. And another thing with the Buffalo Bills is their wide receiver room has been a little bit questionable ever since Stephon Diggs, left last season. Now he's playing for their division rival, New England Patriots. But beyond the point here, the Bills also signed free agent Joshua Palmer from the Los Angeles Chargers. I think this is a potential very sleeper, very underrated signing for this guy. I think Josh Palmer is a great, speedy wide receiver, can make big plays down the field, and I think it's going to be a great addition for the Bills, of course. Now, the Bills do have their wide receiver one. He proved it last year when he's healthy, Khalil Shakir. Khalil Shakir is an absolutely amazing slot receiver, and this guy could be potentially very dangerous on your team. So, great addition. Great to have him on the Bills offense. He was a really big addition 2 years ago. But no, he's been a very good featured wide receiver, as well as second-year player Keon Coleman. I am very high on Keon Coleman. I think this guy's going to have a huge breakout season in year two. Rookie out of Florida State last season. Had a pretty good rookie year. A bit of some injury concerns last year, and he was a bit slow to start the year. But no, I think as the year went on and as, he got more and more comfortable learning Joe Brady's offense, he really did feel comfortable. And, of course, I could see him becoming the Bills' wide receiver 2, potentially, as this season moves along. So, big addition for the Bills again, of course. Also have wide receiver from Ohio State, Curtis Samuel. I think he's a really sneaky option, a pretty good slot receiver as well. But the main question is, who's going to replace that production from Stephon Diggs? And, of course, last year we saw Josh Allen didn't need a big wide receiver one. He was able to do it with kind of a few wide receiver twos like Khalil Shakir, and Keon Coleman and stuff like that. But, of course, guys, the Buffalo Bills had a pretty solid draft. I think they addressed one of their major needs at corner. They were able to select cornerback Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky at pick 30. Pretty good pick there for the Bills. Again, as we see in the draft, as the Ravens saw too, a lot of the secondary players seemed to fall in the draft. Even last year with the Eagles, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell both fell to the Eagles somehow. I think they got him at pick 20 last year, which is pretty surprising because it just kind of shows you that teams in NFL teams aren't necessarily valuing that position as much, where it shows you a team like the Bills that literally made it to the AFC Championship game last year can still pick, doesn't have to trade, can make their original selection on draft night and pick a pretty good cornerback. And Maxwell Harrison, I think he's going to be an absolute stud. The guy's a really, really quick, pretty good corner. I think he'll be a great addition for a much-needed cornerback help for the Bills secondary, of course. And, guys, cannot talk about this Bills offense without mentioning their two-headed monster at tight end. Of course, you got Dalton Kincaid. My fault, guys. I was thinking about the Lakers shooter there. No, think about Dalton Kincaid. Also got Dawson Knox. Two really good tight ends for Josh Allen. Both great blockers. Usually have really good hands. Of course, Dalton Kincaid, had a pretty crucial drop in that game in the AFC. I hate to bring that up. Ravens and Bills both had a tough drop from our tight ends in those divisional and championship games last year in the playoffs. But, of course, all comes down to how you play in those games, guys. Of course, now, I would not be able to finish this video without mentioning, guys, Week 1, very exciting matchup. The Buffalo Bills will host my Baltimore Ravens on, I believe, the opening game, the Sunday night kickoff game. I think it's September 5th. So very exciting game, very big game. Of course, the AFC divisional playoff rematch for Week 1. So that's very exciting. Now, before we end this video, guys, I do want to give my quick record prediction for the Bills. So I see the Bills finishing the season 12-5. Pretty solid. And, of course, no question, I do see them winning the AFC East. I think the Bills they're no doubt the best team in the AFC East, no doubt. I think Miami and New England will be significantly better, but I still think the Bills are going to own that division, so they should not have any problems with that. And I think the Bills legitimately could and should be in the Super Bowl, guys. So I'm picking, besides my Ravens, I'm picking the Buffalo Bills to go to the Super Bowl, guys. Of course, when you got a team like this, talented, the Bills have one of the most talented teams in the NFL. When you have a team built like this, similar to my Ravens, you're kind of built on Super Bowl or bust. So, guys, with that being said, I predict that the Buffalo Bills will be in the Super Bowl this year, guys. So, thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more. And tomorrow, I believe we have the Carolina Panthers coming up tomorrow, guys. So, as always, thanks for watching. Got the O's and the Blue Jays. Got a day-night doubleheader going on today. The O's had a huge win last night against the Jays. I believe they won 12-5. Much needed win against the best team in baseball. So, shout out to those O's. So guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more, and let's go O's.